Get locked into the best Sooner recruiting and football news with Parker Thune and Grayson Singleton.
You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up.
Hit the guys up on the Riverwind Casino call-in line at 405-329-9000 or text the show on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line at 405-651-3439.
Do it! Just do it!
Now, with Locked In, here's Parker Thune and Grayson Singleton.
Boy, Grayson, tonight's going to suck.
Why's that?
Tonight's going to suck because we get our first SEC availability report of the young season. And regardless of what the listed status is for guys like Michael Fasusi, Jake Michaela, Eli Bowen, Giovanni Gibson, etc. Regardless of what there's like, it all could say probable, and it won't for all of those guys and everyone else that's been dealing with injuries of various natures and extents at Oklahoma recently. But they all could be listed as probable, and you will have the OU fan base up in arms on social media and the message boards going, what on earth? Why do we have so many injuries? This is ridiculous. I thought we were never going to have to deal with anything like 2024 again, but here we are.
I mean, all the wide receivers are upright.
All the wide receivers are upright. And in fact, here's maybe the best news of the week, Grayson. I did not expect, nor should you have expected if you're an Oklahoma fan that's paid careful attention to this program over the years, I did not expect that we were going to be singing an optimistic tune midweek about Keontez Lewis's status because historically, guys have not cleared the concussion protocol at OU in a single week. But as of right now, looks like Keontez Lewis is going to play this weekend.
I mean, I don't think you have to follow Oklahoma as much as we do to have not expected him to play. All you got to do is watch that hit on TV and say, yeah, that probably is going to be a 2-week thing.
He took a shot, man. He got his bell rung. But by all accounts, he's doing well, trending in the direction of being available for Saturday's game. Now, I would say the more preeminent concern is the situation in the trenches for Oklahoma and whether or not you can get guys like Michaela and Fabechi Wiwu and Fasusi 100% ready to perform, and not only perform but be able to make an impact, make a positive impact on Oklahoma's ability to win a football game as opposed to just kind of hold the line on Saturday against Auburn, because this is a talented football team. No question about it. Keldrick Falk could be a first-round pick.
Could be a top 15 pick.
He could be a first-round pick if his current trajectory holds. He's incredibly talented. He's probably Auburn's calling card on the defensive side of the ball. If you had to point to a single guy, if there was a single guy that you identify as Auburn's biggest asset on the defensive side of the football, it's almost inarguably Keldrick Falk. So, if you got a banged-up left tackle in Michael Fasusi, then if Auburn's coaching staff gets the sense he is anything less than 100%, come the weekend, what are they probably going to do? Well, just line Keldrick Falk up over him and let him go to work. Because if you got a mismatch, you take advantage of it. So, we're going to get our first availability report tonight. At that point, we will have a more concrete sense of who will play and who will not play this weekend for Oklahoma, and for whom the jury might still be out over the next couple of days as we wind down to the 2:30 kick on Saturday between the Sooners and the Tigers. Elk City Sooner says that voice change-up mocking quote-unquote random fan sounded like something straight out of the Steel Man's playbook. Yeah, it probably was. I've worked with the man for 4 years. His style has rubbed off on me a little bit. I was young and impressionable when we started out. So, odds are for however long I am doing radio professionally, I will have a little bit of Mike Steely in the repertoire. The Waffler says, well, we know Eli Bowen's entering his 5th month with a sprained ankle. It goes a little deeper than that. Like it wasn't just an ankle sprain. But Eli Bowen is getting really, really close to being active for Oklahoma. I'm cynical. I'm pessimistic as to whether it happens this weekend, because here's what you also must consider, Grayson. Oklahoma has a bye on the other side of this Auburn matchup.
Yes, they do.
And then they play Kent State. And so you want to give guys like Eli Bowen and Giovanni Gibson a tune-up before you hit the meat and potatoes of your schedule. Well, you hold them out through the bye. You deploy them against Kent State in limited fashion. And then it's full speed ahead for Texas and beyond. So while Auburn kind of has been the rough target date all along for three guys in particular, Eli Bowen, Giovanni Gibson, Kendall Dolby, I tend to think, despite the fact Dolby got ahead of the curve and managed to get fully healthy in time for the Temple game last week, I'm of the opinion right now that you don't see Eli Bowen and Giovanni Gibson, mostly because what they were working back from was not what Kendall Dolby was working back from. And that's going to sound counterintuitive and might not make sense immediately to some folks, but Giovanni Gibson hasn't practiced since April. Eli Bowen hasn't practiced since March. Eli Bowen's been dealing with an ankle injury, or I should say a series of ailments that have afflicted him for close to 6 months now. Giovanni Gibson has been laid up for close to 6 months after undergoing surgery. Kendall Dolby, while yes, he did undergo surgery for that dislocated ankle he suffered in the Tennessee game last year, that is not specifically what he has been rehabbing from as of late, because he was practicing at the start of fall camp. But along the way, tweaked a groin, tweaked a quad, sprained a wrist, I believe. He had a little cast, or it wasn't a club. It was a cast. Yeah, soft cast on that wrist for a while there on the practice field. But eventually they just said, okay, you're not practicing for a while. Get right. We'll work you back. So it's something much more minor that Kendall Dolby was getting over in terms of his return to the field. With Bowen and Gibson, especially with what's happened in the recent past with guys coming back from long-term rehabs, i.e. Nick Anderson comes to mind, Andrell Anthony comes to mind, even Jaden Gibson this past spring comes to mind. You'd rather be safe than sorry if you can afford to be. And Oklahoma certainly can right now with Eli Bowen and Giovanni Gibson, because the wide receiver room has been a strength to this point, and it is fully healthy, assuming Keontez Lewis plays Saturday. Cornerback has also been a position of strength. Gentry Williams is going to be back active this Saturday, to my understanding, after he was held out against Temple. Suited up, dressed out, went through warm-ups, all that and the other. But they held him out of action because it was Temple. He'll be back. Cortland Guillory has played good ball. Davon Jordan has played some good ball. Jacoby Johnson started to get back into the swing of things last week against Temple after he hadn't seen any defensive snaps through the first 2 games of the season. So it feels like you can afford right now to be a little bit more deliberate in working Bowen and Gibson back. Would that be fair?
I mean, it's fair, and it still pisses me off that we're getting up for this game against Auburn, and then 2 weeks from now we have a game against Kent State. Obviously, that's my problem with how the SEC has been scheduling, but that's neither here nor there. It's still makes me angry. Anyway, going back to the offensive line, because I do think this is not something you can gloss over. Because I think the key to this game against Auburn is which team is going to be able to remain multidimensional on offense. Now, we know Oklahoma has, against Michigan especially, had problems generating a consistent run game with the running backs. Given that that's Auburn's biggest strength is on the front line defensively, because I think that's their biggest strength on the team, not the wide receivers that are really good, because their quarterback kind of neutralizes that. But if you're going to remain two-dimensional and not give a dude, like you mentioned, like Keldrick Fault, just the opportunity to tee off on your quarterback against what could be a suspect situation at the left tackle, you're going to have to be able to run the ball. So even if Michael Fasusi's healthy, you don't want 60% of him out there. You don't want 60% of anybody out there, because you got to make sure that you're going to be able to move people so your offense can remain unpredictable. Because the last thing you want is elite edge rushers teeing off on your quarterback.
Big Mike Boganowski, listening from Junction City, Kansas. Texted us on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line at 405-651-3439 and said, "It's amazing to me how folks can think a kid that hasn't been able to practice, run, work out should be expected to play immediately at a high level. There has to be a ramp up."
Has to be.
And they have been ramping up Giovanni Gibson and Eli Bowen. Like, that process is ongoing.
So how do you ramp up without practicing, though?
For one thing, especially in Gibson's case, with what he's working back from, just get him sprinting again.
Fair enough.
Work up from walking to jogging to sprinting.
So does that count as ramping up, or does that still count as part of the rehab? If you get what I'm putting down.
Yeah, and I think if you're talking about ramping up, like in terms of just getting back on the practice field and going through drills and getting accustomed to the speed once again.
Getting back to being able to play.
Yes, correct. That, I think, is part of the reason why it makes sense right now to just go ahead and table the Bowen return and the Gibson return until the other side of the bye week, because then you have 2 weeks. You have a 2-week window where they can get acclimated once again on the practice field.
I agree with you.
A 580 listener says, "For the 10th time, Grayson hates the cupcakes on the schedule. Hate to say it, but it's necessary on both sides. And seeing where it falls on our schedule, it benefits us big time for health. Come on, pickle poke."
It definitely does. I mean, it definitely benefits Oklahoma. We still should not be playing Kent State in the middle of in October.
I will say I have less of an issue with it when you look at the rest of the schedule for Oklahoma and it's 7 straight matchups against ranked opponents.
If you look at it purely from a fan perspective and you isolate it just to your team, you're like, hell yeah. But if you look at it from a macro perspective, like I'm coming from, as a college football fan, it's like, we don't want this.
I hear you.
But I understand the economic necessities of it and whatever.
A 4 or 5 listener said, "No, Grayson, all the team has to do against an elite pass rusher is have Bauer sharp block him." You know what I did not have on my bingo card? And I guess I should have a broader bingo card when it comes to SEC teleconferences, but I did not expect Brent Venables to face a Bauer sharp question at the very front end of his SEC teleconference this morning. First question he was asked was a question about Bauer Sharp. What are we doing here?
Nope.
The question was something along the lines of, yeah, when you were scouting Bauer Sharp in the transfer portal when he came from southeastern Louisiana or whatever it was, what made you believe that he was going to be able to play tight end at a higher level?
Is that the question?
And Brent Venables, to his credit, manufactured an answer. Listen, if I was in Venables' shoes, I would have just been like, all due respect, I don't really want to talk about a guy that's no longer on my roster. I have my own team to worry about. The teleconferences are such a bizarre experience because they'll call on reporters from all over the SEC.
Yeah.
And everybody will be coming at it with some off-the-wall story angle. I mean, you get 10 minutes on the SEC teleconference. I would think that as the media, we would be devoted to trying to get the most out of those SEC teleconferences that we could in terms of a coach's impressions of and comments on the important storylines surrounding his own team, but perhaps not.
Especially when that coach is Brent Venables and one of his answers could take up a third of that 10 minutes.
Ain't that the truth? Apparently, I saw somebody on Twitter say that Shane Beamer, during his SEC teleconference today, was not asked about Lenoris Sellers, which is obviously the biggest storyline right now in South Carolina, in the South Carolina football world.
Mm-hmm.
He was asked about the Virginia Tech job. He was asked about Ahmad Hardy, and he was asked about, I don't know what the third one was, some other BS. But basically, they got 3 questions to Shane Beamer, and those were the 3 questions.
And I know we do talk radio and deal with this a lot, or deal in this a lot, but I think sometimes people in our profession get too caught up in hypotheticals instead of focusing on the here and now.
I like focusing on the here and now.
I do too.
Especially during the season. We got a whole off season to discuss hypotheticals. Let's talk about the here and now while we can. And that is what we do here on these airwaves every single day. Again, this is Locked In here on the Ref Sports Radio Network, brought to you by Dorsey Jones GMC in El Reno. If you're in the market for a new vehicle, GMC offers some of the most reliable trucks and SUVs on the road today, and Dorsey Jones isn't just the place to go. If you're looking for a new vehicle, they can help you out with service for your current vehicle, including half-price oil changes on Saturdays. Now, for those of you that were unaware, we are streaming on YouTube every single day here on Locked In. This is the only show on the Ref that simulcasts on YouTube. So, if you're listening via the Ref app or via terrestrial radio, if it is easier for you or more engaging for you to see our beautiful faces as we bring you an hour of football and recruiting talk every single day, subscribe on YouTube at KREF Sports. Just search KREF Sports on YouTube. Our channel will pop right up. And we will field your questions in the YouTube chat, in addition to the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Once again, that number to send us a text is 405-651-3439. Coming up on the other side, Oklahoma suddenly in the mix for a national top 150 player in the 2026 cycle that is back on the open market after decommitting from the school that he was previously pledged to. We will discuss it and more when we return here on the Ref, the home of Sooner fans.
Sound off any time of day on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line at 405-651-3439. Knippelmeyer Chevrolet in Blanchard, USA.
Here in Oklahoma, community is everything. It's where we raise our families, support our neighbors, and help each other through life's toughest moments. At McIntyre Law, we are proud Oklahomans. For us, it's not about just practicing law, it's about giving back.
From taking care of families in need to supporting Oklahomans to encouraging our youngest Oklahomans, we're committed to making our community stronger. Call McIntyre Law at 405-777-7000. Caring for our clients isn't just our job, it's who we are.
Are you in need of purchasing your own health insurance? Are you turning 65 and confused about Medicare? Are you an employer looking at offering benefits to your staff? Call the agents at Allison Insurance. They'll sort through the confusion. They're not captive to just one company, and they'll get the best option for you. Don't get frustrated. Call Allison Insurance at 800-580-5587 or 745-2968. Allison Insurance. They are the experts.
For the professional, it's not enough to just possess knowledge. That's why at GMC, we seek to refine it, to wield its power, to redefine its boundaries, while pushing the limits. And we put this knowledge to the test in every GMC Sierra by engineering each one to outperform your expectations. So you know you're getting precision and durability when you need it most. And that's what makes the GMC Sierra the truck worth knowing. We are professional grade. See your Oklahoma GMC dealers.
Say good morning with the little heats. El Huevo and Norman is serving Tex-Mex inspired breakfast and brunch every day until 2. Tacos, huevos rancheros, spicy skillets, and more, plus a full bar to start your day bold.
El Huevo off of Tecumseh Road, where every morning feels like a fiesta. El Huevo, breakfast with a kick. Tune in every Friday to hear more about the Hal Smith Restaurant Group during the Rush and the Dari Noka Show here on the Ref.
Sidelined by injury? Valor Physical Therapy and H2 Health Company can help. Our therapists use their knowledge and skills to help get you back in the game faster. Book your appointment now at valorpt.com or call 405-609-3637. No referral needed. Mention the Ref and get a free t-shirt at your first appointment. That's valorpt.com.
Ready to jumpstart your future? Start training for a high-demand, high-wage career in healthcare, construction, IT, manufacturing, or STEM while you're still in high school. Moore and Norman sophomores, juniors, and seniors apply online today to attend Moore Norman Technology Center next fall. Talk to your MNTC rep at school or visit mntc.edu to learn more. Change your life, build your tomorrow, start your future now at Moore Norman Technology Center.
With OG&E's Energy Efficiency Program, we'll provide the blueprint for lowering your bill and increasing your comfort. Whether it's tuning heat and air units, caulking and weather stripping drafty doors and windows, insulating your attic, or connecting you with valuable rebates, you'll improve efficiency and save money with no out-of-pocket costs. Learn more at oge.com/efficiency. At OG&E, we energize life.
Dreaming of an escape? What about a relaxing escape to your very own backyard? Signature Custom Pools can turn your dreams into reality. Signature Custom Pools creates distinctive designs to fit your perfect getaway. Call Signature Custom Pools for your free design consultation at 405-898-9098 or visit them online at signaturecustompools.com and turn your backyard into your dream escape. It is locked in here on the ref. Parker Thune, Grayson, Singleton hanging with you on a Wednesday afternoon. The Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line is 405-651-3439. You know who we haven't talked about much at all thus far in the month of September? One William E. Beedenbow. And when we aren't talking about Bill Beedenbow, that's generally a good thing. Because it means his offensive line is playing well.
Yeah, generally when you're not talking about offensive line, anything, that's a good thing.
Bill Beedenbow's name has hardly been mentioned thus far this month. So let me mention it. And let me give a hat tip to one of his offensive linemen who's playing excellent football thus far this season, and that is center Jake Michaela. He has the highest pass blocking grade right now, according to PFF, than any other center in college football. We mentioned it yesterday, but like we didn't think it at the time. This might have been the most crucial addition of the spring portal window for Oklahoma.
Sure as hell seems like it.
Because we don't know that Ricky Lolohea even exists, for one thing. Tate Sandell is a ho-hum 3 for 4 on field goal attempts. Jermichael Carter has played some, has not yet caught a pass. And, well, I don't know what we can make of the Jaden Ott experience at this point, but
I was waiting for you to get to it.
It doesn't look promising. The guy that Oklahoma landed in the spring portal window, was there anybody else? I think it was just those 5. If I'm wrong, correct me on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line, as I know one of you will within minutes. But Jake Michaela, to this point, looks like the most impactful addition of the spring portal window for Oklahoma, particularly because Troy Everett is going to miss the rest of the season. And so what does this offensive line picture look like? If you don't have Jake Michaela, there's your starting center. It is not a pretty picture, not an encouraging hypothetical. Sooner 287 said Derek Simmons. Derek Simmons was a winter portal addition, not a spring guy. We're talking spring guys, i.e. guys that were acquired by the program in April/May. And look, a lot of people have been highly critical of Jim Nagy the last week or two in particular, because at this point, yeah, it's true. Jaden Ott just kind of looks like a bad investment right now. But if you're going to knock Nagy for that, you got to give him some flowers for going and landing Jake Michaela. And I know for a fact the price tag wasn't cheap to land Michaela. If I'd said the number at the time, no doubt some folks would have been going, what? We paid that to a transfer from liberal Stanford. But right now, if I were to tell you the number, I think most would say, yep, that was worth the investment.
And what do I always say on these airwaves? Value is relative. And sometimes even after you pay the money, the value can increase. And that's what's happened here.
A couple of Ozempic-related texts on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line.
Huh?
Sean says, it's because Bill has done so much Ozempic, he's disappeared, and we forgot about him. Bill Beatonbow has trimmed up. It doesn't, I don't think he used Ozempic.
I don't think so either.
Somebody also asked, did Devon Mitchell use Ozempic once he got down to Louisville? I actually checked in on Devon Mitchell in his early season progress at Louisville earlier today. Come to find out, he caught his first pass of his college career against Eastern Kentucky. Caught a pass for 8 yards as a Louisville Cardinal. So apparently he's listed at 260 on their online roster, so he's evidently trimmed up a little bit. Whether Ozempic or not, he is a little bit slimmer. But yeah, it really is interesting to think. And I had this conversation with a source this morning. With the way Jaron Kanik has excelled in this system, as a guy that has only been playing tight end for 8 months, it does make you wonder. Yes, Jaron Kanik's having a fantastic year, but how much higher could a guy soar if he were able to develop in this system for a couple years and he came pre-programmed with a lot of the technical refinement that comes with playing the tight end position in high school, i.e. somebody with a background at tight end. Devon Mitchell could have been that guy, man.
Yeah.
If Devon Mitchell had taken his stuff seriously at the University of Oklahoma,
yeah,
he could be poised for a big, big year in 2026. But as it is, he is down in the land of bourbon.
I don't know if that's a good thing for him either.
The house that Howard Schnellenberger built.
That's like having Zion Williamson in New Orleans.
A 405 listener says, Parker likes to do little redneck accents making fun of Oklahomans. Parker can't even change a car tire. Soy boy. He called me a soy boy.
He did call you a soy boy.
Fact check. Not true. I can indeed change a car tire, as every man should be able to do. And my apologies if you interpret the little redneck accents, as you characterized it, as making fun of Oklahomans. It's not intended to mock Oklahomans. I'm an Okie. I'm a resident of the state of Oklahoma. I love living in the state of Oklahoma. Wouldn't prefer to live anywhere else. Love all of you that I get to interact with on a daily basis via these radio airwaves. By no means would I ever throw shade at Oklahomans in general.
Hey, to pay off your tease, we got this question on the YouTube chat. Caddo County Sooner says, hello, boys. How many of these UCLA decommits could we expect to see on campus for visits soon?
Yes, and this is the other reason I wanted to get to Bill Beatonbow this segment, because Bill Beatonbow and the Sooners are back in contact with the guy that you can make a strong argument was the crown jewel of UCLA's recruiting class before it imploded over the weekend. And it continues to implode. And there's not going to be much left by the time all of the smoke clears and you get a chance to look at the carnage of UCLA's recruiting class. Like, that program is in dire straits. Dire straits. Because no doubt they're going to be victimized by outbound transfers.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to hire a new head coach and a new staff and probably a new front office that is tasked with completely revamping the public perception, like not only the roster, but the public perception of a program that has just been dormant for the better part of a decade at this point. But UCLA's loss could be Oklahoma's gain because, as reported by my On3 colleague Hayes Fawcett earlier today, the Sooners are one of 4 schools, quote-unquote, standing out to Floridian offensive tackle Johnny Jones, who decommitted from UCLA on Sunday. Johnny Jones is going to visit Missouri this weekend. Missouri wasted no time in getting involved with him. But it is altogether likely, and I would argue probable, that he winds up taking a visit to Oklahoma at some point later on in the season. This is a nice little collision of circumstances for Oklahoma with Johnny Jones. Because Bill Beatonbow is Bill Beatonbow. His resume kind of sells itself. It's something of which Johnny Jones is very aware. And as we mentioned earlier in the week, He also has an existing relationship with Oklahoma's director of player personnel, Stacey Ford, who was hired from UCLA just a few months ago. So you would think the Sooners will have staying power in this process down the stretch, as over the next 2.5 months, Johnny Jones figures out where he's going to play his college football.
Penn State and Florida State also in this as well, as it pertains to Johnny Jones. Going back to the UCLA thing, though, not only are you going to have to revitalize public perception of that program, you're also going to have to get the people in Los Angeles to care. Because those people are distracted and have so many options, they probably don't care about UCLA. But as it pertains to Johnny Jones, I do notice this. Number one, I think he's a necessity for Oklahoma. The way I look at it, he's a necessity. Because if there's one thing that has become abundantly clear the last couple of years, they struggle to keep tackles healthy. So the numbers are going to be of paramount importance for Oklahoma. So the more guys that you can stack there, obviously you've got roster constraints and scholarship constraints and so on and so forth. But if you can stack high-level talent on top of high-level talent for Oklahoma at that particular position, I think that would behoove you to do so. And look, I don't know what the price tag is going to be, but I think this is one, just watching his film, because he's a mammoth human with excellent feet and excellent balance and a good foundation, good base. This is a dude that could turn into a real superstar. Mm-hmm. So to me, even though you have Michael Fasusi, that's going to be a guy that you want to lock it down with, considering your recent history in terms of being unable to keep guys healthy at tackle.
He moves really well.
He moves excellently.
Johnny Jones has a ton of mobility for somebody that's listed at 6'6", 305 pounds. And that right there, the size component, that's another thing that comes into play. And honestly, I think that the pursuit of Johnny Jones probably forecloses the door on the hypothetical pursuit of Daniel McMorris right down the road at Norman North, because if you have your choice between landing a kid that's a top 150 prospect and is physically ready to play P4 football, even though I think he'd probably need at least a year to get ready to play tackle at Oklahoma, or you could take the underdeveloped, high-ceiling prospect from down the road that is really athletically gifted but only 255, 260 pounds, then you're leaning in favor of the guy, I think, that has played stiffer competition down there in Florida, is more physically ready, and hopefully, like you would hope, you can get him on campus and get him ready to spring. Get him ready to jump on board with your program. I know the NIL era has demonstrated that anybody can win a recruiting battle over anybody when it comes down to it if you're willing to invest more. But assuming the money is there, and I trust that it will be, assuming the money is there in Oklahoma's pursuit of Johnny Jones, I tend to favor Bill Bedenbaugh's chances to win a recruiting battle against a school like Missouri. And there are other schools in the mix too, right? Penn State has been back in touch with Johnny Jones, and we'll have to see where his interests lie. The opportunity factor certainly coming into play as well. But I'd think Oklahoma, again, just off the rip, 72 hours into this thing, is going to have some staying power in the Johnny Jones process. Gunny Stutzman Army says, Johnny Jones, he sounds sneaky athletic.
Not sneaky.
Nope, he's not sneaky, Gunny.
Nope.
He's just athletic. He is just athletic. How crazy is it also, by the way, that a kid from Florida committed to UCLA? And, okay, maybe that's an oversimplification. How crazy is it that a kid that's a top 150 player from the state of Florida committed to that UCLA?
Yeah, that's weird. That is strange to me. I'm interested to see if I know Miami's got their dude in this class, Jackson Cantwell, but I feel like Miami could make itself an attractive destination given how that O-line has played this year.
Well, and the question I asked does have something of an answer, because in talking to a couple of sources about the Johnny Jones process, the one thing that I picked up on was that he liked UCLA in no small part because he felt that he could start as a freshman. So
Miami's probably out of the picture in that regard.
Now, it ought to be acknowledged, though, that there aren't going to be a ton of elite programs, nationally competitive programs, top 25 programs, where you're looking at that type of outlook. And so it's going to come down to, well, does Johnny Jones want to take a gander, take a chance, going to play for a mid-tier P4 program where he might get the chance to get on the field right away? Or is he content, now that he's got some big-time programs coming after him once again, to potentially not have as immediate a path to playing time, but get far better development and resources and support and all of those things at a place like the University of Oklahoma?
A texter in the 405. Let's go with this one. Why should we give Nagy flowers when he's come through with one actual contributor out of the talent he's gotten out of the portal? 1 out of 6 or 7 is not anything to be excited about, not to mention how far off he was on Jaden Knott.
Okay, well, hey, good question. Fair question. I will try to give you a good and fair answer. It's going to take a little bit of time, and we are running up against a break. So how about this? Let's come right back to that text on the other side. We will start our final segment on Locked In with your text, dear 405 listener. So stay with us. Quick word from our sponsors here. We will be right back with more OU football and recruiting talk here on The Ref, the home of Sooner fans.
This is Sooner linebacker Kobe McKenzie, and you're listening to The Ref, home of the Sooner fans.
From downtown Norman to Lake Thunderbird, the Subaru Crosstrek Premium is built for all of Oklahoma's roads, paved or dirt. This ride will get you through it all. And right now at Cavender Subaru of Norman, it's yours for just $249 a month. Let's start your next adventure now. Come by and take it for a test drive today. Visit us online at CavenderSubaruofNorman.com or in person at 3305 Corporate Center Drive, Cavender Subaru of Norman, where confidence is Cavender.
Don't miss out on OKC's hottest entertainment at the Showplace Theater with acts like
Bret Michaels, September 27th. Collective Soul, October 17th. And the Oak Ridge Boys, November 28th.
Above.
Riverwind is OKC's favorite casino experience.
There's never a perfect moment to talk to your kids about the dangers of tobacco. So, how about right now? We're giving you the rest of this ad time so you can talk with your kids. Not quite ready? Find everything you'll need to start the conversation at talkabouttobacco.com. Brought to you by TSET.
Insurance companies aren't in the business of saving you money, they're in the business of taking your money. Hi, this is Will Gosney with Yala Gosney Attorneys at Law. Have you ever had an insurance claim and thought, wow, I really am in good hands, or these folks truly are treating me like a neighbor? Well, that's where we can help. We'll deal with the stress, we'll get you back to your normal life. So save our number in your phone, and if you're ever hurt in a wreck, call or text us at 405-800-8080. It's 405-800-8080.
Thinking of buying, selling, or building a home? I'm Mariah Calhour, broker and owner of Calhour Group Realty. With more than 1,700 homes sold over the past 13 years, I know what it takes to get the job done. My team and I are based in Norman, but we proudly serve the metro and surrounding areas, and we are available around the clock. Calhour Group Realty, proven experience, ready when you are. Call me at 405-308-0109.
Did you know there's a place where you can get good neighbor service and surprisingly great rates on home and auto insurance? Yep, and that place is, ta-da, State Farm. Here's the deal. State Farm agent Cindy Nasher is your go-to agent in Norman for the service you deserve at the price you want. So stop shopping around. State Farm agent Cindy Nasher has you covered. Call 405-307-0500 for surprisingly great rates today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Individual premiums will vary by customer. All applicants subject to State Farm underwriting requirements.
Midwest Lift Fest is back from 11 to 3 behind Vance Auto Group in Guthrie.
Wait, free to enter?
Yep, free to enter, drive, and thrive.
I heard they completely redid the off-road obstacle course.
No way.
Bring your Jeep, Ford Bronco, lifted truck, or SUV and hit the off-road course.
That plus live music from the Sugar-Free All-Stars? The kids will love that.
Food trucks, raffles, prizes, face painting, an e-bike course for kids, and RC crawlers.
I'm definitely going to donate this year to Casa for Kids.
Presented by Kicker Performance Audio. Free face painting, free course access, free e-bike rides, free everything.
No off-road ride? No problem. Vance Auto Group is offering free ride-alongs in our very own Jeeps, Broncos, and we even heard the sheriff will be roaming around in his lifted truck.
Don't miss Midwest Lift Fest Saturday from 11 to 3 in Guthrie, Oklahoma on September 27th.
All right, final segment of Locked In here on the Ref. Parker Thune, Grayson, Singleton. It is Wednesday. We had a delightful lunch from the Standard earlier today. If you haven't checked out the Standard, do it. They catered for College game day when game day was in town for OU Michigan. You come to see why, or rather you come to taste why when you bite into that hangover burger or the pretzel sticks and beer cheese. Oklahoma onion burgers as well. They brought us chicken and waffles. It was a whole spread, and it was fantastic. So thanks to Tim and the folks over at the Standard. Before we get to that text that I put a pin in from that 405 listener, Blake from Owasso said, missed half the show. Does the pursuit of Johnny Jones indicate we are out on Hackett? No, not by a long shot, because they're two different classes. Johnny Jones is class of 2026. Cooper Hackett is class of 2027. So no correlation between the two. Now, back around to this text. This 405 listener said, why should we give Nagy flowers when he's come through with one actual contributor out of the talent he's gotten out of the portal? 1 out of 6 or 7 is not anything to be excited about, not to mention how far off he was on Ott. Now, I'm going off the dome here, so apologies if I forget someone. But to my recollection, Oklahoma made 5 additions in the spring portal. Jaden Ott, Jake Mike, or you know what? Actually 6. Bell just rang in my memory. I did forget somebody the first time around. Jaden Ott, Jake Michaela, Tate Sandell, Jermichael Carter, Ricky Lolohea, and Whit Neubauer was the one I forgot. So what I would urge you to consider here is how have those players performed relative to the expectations that they carried when they arrived at the University of Oklahoma. For instance, Whit Neubauer, just to pick one example, was expected to be Oklahoma's third-string quarterback. John Mateer, Michael Hawkins, Whit Neubauer. Thus, you were not expecting to see Whit Neubauer on the football field, save for the most dire of emergency situations. And so, I would argue that relative to expectations, Whit Neubauer has been exactly what you had expected him to be. Ricky Lolohea, we all knew that was a depth addition. He hadn't seen the field yet. Again, I have not seen him with my own 2 eyes yet. Not sure what the deal is there, but he was not somebody that, you know, when it was announced Ricky Lolohea is transferring to the University of Oklahoma, I don't know that anybody was saying, oh, yep, that's a dude that's going to slide into the rotation next to David Stone, Grayson Halton, Dominic Williams, and Jaden Jackson. So again, relative to expectations, can you really beef with the Ricky Lolohea addition? Same thing with Jermichael Carter. I don't know if everybody had the same expectations of Jermichael Carter. What I said right after he signed with Oklahoma was, this is a guy that best case scenario probably catches 15 to 20 passes. He was depth. Everybody knew he was depth. So that brings us to the 3 that you could successfully argue are of much greater importance to this roster in 2025. Tate Sandell, Jaden Ott, Jake Michaela. Jury's still out for me on Tate Sandell. He missed his first field goal attempt. He's hit the 3 since then, including a 50-plus yarder. We'll see. It's been 3 games. But he's the starting kicker. He's also handling kickoffs. Doing well enough for himself. Between Ott and Michaela, Ott has certainly not lived up to expectations. That we can say conclusively and definitively. Jaden Ott has 9 carries for 17 yards on the season. I don't know that you could have convinced anybody that Jaden Ott would have 9 carries for 17 yards in the first game of the season. But here we are. And then I would say Michaela, in my mind, has gone beyond expectations. And admittedly, it is early. There is time for the outlook to change, not only for him, but for each of the other 5 guys that I mentioned. But he has the highest pass blocking grade, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, according to PFF, of any center in college football. And so, if we can conclude that 4 of the 6 have performed commensurate with expectations thus far, 1 has failed to live up to expectations, and 1 has gone beyond expectations, can we just call it a wash at that point? I mean, look, if you're not thoroughly satisfied and over the moon with that haul, then that's fine. But I don't know that you can use that as evidence to say that Jim Nagy's not doing a good job as Oklahoma's general manager. This texter then followed up and said, so we should lower the expectations in general and rely on the players he brings in to not produce in general? That's the worst excuse I've ever heard. Anybody can bring in players that don't contribute. What a joke. Why bring in players at all if they can't contribute? What a poor argument. I don't recall ever saying that those players couldn't contribute. What I recall saying is that they did not carry the immediate expectations of being significant contributors in 2025. Because by the end of spring, the depth chart was already pretty much settled. Grayson, there were a few positions we weren't sure about, center being one, but the depth chart was mostly settled. And so what were you looking for at that point? You were looking for depth guys for the most part. You weren't looking to upset the apple cart and bring in somebody that is going to threaten to run off other performers at his same position because he's going to be making a ton of money and he's going to be eating a ton of snaps. No, if you feel good about what you have, and obviously based on what we've seen from this Oklahoma team thus far, there was plenty of reason for the staff to feel good about what they had going into the season existing on the roster, then you're just looking to fill the gaps. And guys like Jermichael Carter, guys like Whit Neubauer, they filled very specific voids for this program. Oklahoma needed a third-string quarterback. They needed an X-receiver for depth. They got those guys. They needed another experienced defensive lineman just in case they lost a David Stone or a Grayson Halton to injury or something along those lines. They got him in Ricky Lolohea. So I'm not saying you bring players in with the expectation that they never give you anything, but I think it's fair to feel that you need to add players in a given portal cycle to provide nothing more in an immediate sense than depth, because if we learn nothing else from 2024, depth is freaking important.
Yeah, and right now, Jermichael Carter is listed as the number 2 wide receiver at the Z position on the depth chart is where it was.
Is he listed as Z?
I think it's either Z or X. One of the two. It might be X. But he's listed as the second guy. Ricky Lolohea, you mentioned, he is brought in to be depth at defensive tackle. Now, what does that mean and why do I stress that? Because it is defensive tackle where you are in collisions at the focal point of a play, 40 times a game. Sometimes them dudes are going to get hurt and you're going to need people capable behind them. Here's my point. You can the expectation based upon reality is the right way to go about this. Now, if you want to call Jim Nagy into question, and if you want to call those additions into question, do it if their number is called and they don't perform. That to me is when you could do that, because you're not, especially in a world now where you have to run the financials to be able to fill out your roster. And remember, this is still the spring portal where at this point, like Parker said, you are just filling in the gaps and making sure you've dotted all your I's and crossed all your T's. Now, If it comes a time where Jermichael Carter needs to take significant snaps and he sucks, then we can have this conversation. If it comes a point in time where a couple of the DTs go down and Ricky Lolohea has to come in and play meaningful snaps and he's getting pushed around by one dude into the linebackers, okay, now we can have this conversation. If Tate Sandell misses critical kicks like Towns Magoo did last year with Auburn, okay, now we've got something to talk about. But in terms of dudes aren't performing and dudes aren't giving you what they were supposed to give, the only one that really fits that argument is Jaden Ott. And to me, that's plain and simple.
Greg from Lawton says, I don't understand why you guys address unintelligent texters. It is not quality radio. Nagy has been here 6 months. There will be misses. Let's zoom out and provide the intelligent listener a better program. Apologies, Greg. My effort with this show every single day is to make people feel heard. And so you know what? If you agree with that 405 texter, if you're not satisfied with the additions that Jim Nagy has made thus far, I at least want to make you feel as though your voice has been heard. And you've been provided with a perspective that challenges you. J-Dub says it's way too early to try and proclaim Jim Nagy as either a success or a failure. Give it some time. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And here's the thing, man. And I know Jaden Ott, this topic of conversation is not going anywhere. We're going to talk a lot about Jaden Ott for the rest of the season, for better or worse. I've just kind of gotten the sense that in talking to a multiplicity of different sources close to the program, that Jaden Ott is kind of the one that more so is in his own way than there is any other obstacle standing in between him and making a serious impact for this program. And again, like I don't think that's terribly shocking to anybody that watched his body language in the Temple game. There was a little bit of reticence to run between the tackles. There was a little bit of reticence to absorb contact as a blocker. And those are the things you have to do if you're going to play at the University of Oklahoma. Because as Ben Arbuckle said in his press conference on Monday, playing running back is about so much more than carrying the ball.
Indeed. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if he is going to get another opportunity, because right now he's not getting he's relinquished his first one, but I wonder if he's going to get another one.
Reformed Homer says, odd as a footnote, trivia question in the making. He may be.
Yeah.
We'll have to see.
Seems like it's trending in that direction.
Boy. Ardmore Sooner says, I just want to be on record that I am an intelligent texter. Thank you very much for hearing me. You're welcome, Ardmore Sooner. We appreciate you immensely. Bash My Prime says, is Ott Devon Mitchell 2.0? But going back to the original text, I think that's part of the reason, right, where you, in this day and age, you have to be really calculated about what you do in the transfer portal. And I'm not sure how many folks realize that this is the case, but you can't always go and add a Jaden Ott caliber player. And that maybe that sounds different now than it did 3 months ago. But, like, you can't always go and add a guy as highly regarded as Jaden Ott in the portal, even if you have the money to do so, without worrying about what the trickle-down effect is going to be on the rest of the depth chart at that position, in the rest of that room. Because I know this for a fact. When Oklahoma announced the signing of Jaden Ott, there were a couple running backs that went to the staff and said, hey, you're going to have to pay me some more money. You're going to have to up my salary. Because if I'm going to stick around in this running back room when you evidently just brought in a guy to take my spot, you recruited over me, well, you got to give me some incentive to believe that I'm still part of the plan here in 2025. And so it's about a way bigger picture than I think most realize in situations like
that. And now you're entering an era where you're going to have cap restrictions in some form or fashion. So that sort of trickle-down effect can only make that situation turn into one that could have been really good and elevated your team to one that hamstrings you.
A listener in the 703, that's Virginia, says, forget all the other running back stuff. If you run scared between the tackles, the other stuff don't matter. And that's true. That's why I think Torrey Blaylock has become such a fan favorite here early on, is because that kid's fearless, man. He's fearless. And Brent Venables said after the game Saturday, he's not 100%. And he's not. He's not. There are a lot of guys that in his shoes, if they were dealing with the injury that he's been dealing with here over the first couple of weeks of the season, would not have played the last 2 games. Not only has Torrey Blaylock done so, he's emerged as the guy that's probably Oklahoma's RB1 to this point. And it's because he's fearless. That is what it boils down to more so than anything else. All right, 405-651-3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. If you want to continue to make your voice heard throughout the day, here on the Ref, the home of Sooner fans, we are done. For Grayson, Singleton, I am Parker Thune. Great hour with all of you guys on the text line. We're looking forward to doing it all again tomorrow. But on the other side, Teddy Lehman and Tyler McComas take over. The Rush is coming up next. 3 more hours of OU football talk ahead. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll see you tomorrow.